Okay, so when you look at security requirements, you look at it in a way how your data is safe over these cloud services or cloud models. So no one would want passwords to be revealed to anyone. No one wants to have their business information, which is sensitive, revealed to anyone. Only authorized personnel should have access to that information. So between among these public models, which one can among these public models, of course, if you have sensitive data, you would go for private cloud model, because when you deploy your information, or when you upload your information on these cloud services, your information will only be granted to authorized users. Of course, you have to authorize users who can access certain information. If your if your if your data is not that sensitive, you can put it on public cloud, because it's not it's less expensive when you look at it on a perspective of how it will cost you. Public cloud service models are less expensive compared to private cloud. And then when you look at hybrid cloud is just basically combining these two, like part of public and part of private. Okay, so that's basically what security requirements is all about. Okay, so question 4. So question 4 is asking about identify two factors that influence the choice of cloud deployment model. So it's about cloud deployment 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 model. Okay, so what then is a cloud deployment model? So a cloud deployment model is basically how services are set up and used. So it's not just about how cloud services are set up and used, it's also about security. For examples of cloud deployment model, we have public public cloud, private cloud, and also hybrid hybrid cloud. So based on the question that we've been asked, we have been told to say identify two factors that influence the choice of a cloud deployment model. So let's think of it as which type of cloud setup should a business choose. Okay, although the question is asking us what factors make a company choose one cloud model instead of another. That's basically the meaning of the question. In other words, we would say what things influences the decision. Okay, so between these, so these are the factors. In short, this is where we are going to get the factors from. So one of the factors that we have is security model, or security requirements. Requirements. Okay, security requirements. Number 2, cost or budget. Okay, so these are the factors that we need to identify which cloud model can we go for, or which company sorry, uh, a company, what cloud model can a company choose between these three? Between these three, of course, we are going to look at two. These two, cloud, public cloud and private cloud, because these are the mostly used. Okay, so factor number one. Looking at factor number one, we are looking at security requirements. So, when we look at security, of course, we are talking about something which is secure, like, for example, how maybe when you create an account on a certain website, how secure is your password, how secure is your username, how or when you want to render information, how secure is that information that you've given on a particular website. Okay, we also, when we look at security, we also want to prevent unauthorized access to anyone. Imagine at home, you have a system at home, yeah, at your place, anyone can access everything at your place. Like anyone, whenever someone comes, they can go to the kitchen, start cooking, they can watch TV, or that, anyone who comes at your place, which means it's not secure. Okay, so that's what we are talking about, is security requirements. Okay, so okay, I'll give this scenario. At the same place, maybe at home, there are certain things that you put that can be accessed by anyone in that particular house. Kids can access the TV, they can access the kitchen utensils, everything. But there are certain things that are sensitive, that you would want these kids not to access. Where do you put them? You can't put them on a public place. Why? Because if there is any sensitive information, it can be disclosed to the public. But rather, you would put it where they can, where these kids can't access. Okay, so that's about security. Okay, so what if companies have got sensitive data? Which cloud model can they choose between these two, public and private? Of course, when you just look at it, you're able to tell someone would go for a private one, for as long as that information is very much sensitive. Okay, so the more sensitive the information is, the more secure cloud model a company may choose. As simple as that. So that's what they wanted. These are the one of the solutions that they wanted in that in question 4. So we are now going to look at factor number 2. Before we look at factor number 2, because when you look at public model can be accessed by any user. Of course, when you put your information on a public cloud, it's not it's not mandatory or everyone who can access your information. They just put their information separate based on what they want to do with the public cloud. Okay, it's not that when you put your data, which is when you put your data on cloud model, they can able to manipulate it or and all that. Of course, it's only you who can manipulate that data. But in terms of where threats comes in, your data is at risk because it's not secure compared to private cloud. So many companies with sensitive sensitive information or sensitive data, they go for private cloud. Why? Because it's more secure. It's more secure. Yeah. And when you look at it in terms of cost, this one is more costly compared to public cloud. The more private the information is, the more expensive you find it to render it on a cloud model. All right, so we go now to factor 2. Factor 2, which is uh, which is which is cost or budget. Okay, so about cost or budget, when you look at it, we are just basic. When you look at cost, this simply means money. Cost is about expenses, and budget just means how much is available to spend. Okay, so imagine again in football clubs, a small club, maybe with little money, they can't afford their own stadium, they can't afford training centers, training equipments. What do? uh, they just basically go to these shared facilities. Because why? Because it is cheaper. Because the reason why it is they can't afford public private private crowds is because it's very expensive, so they go for what they can afford. Okay, and then with these maybe professional clubs, if those who have money, of course they would go for private private facilities where it's private, no one can disturb them, they can do their own things without interruption. Okay, so they are able to build their own stadium, they can able to pay for their own private gym, private equipments and all that. So in relation to cloud computing, a company with limited money choose a public they choose a public cloud model because it is cheaper. A large company with more money may prefer a private cloud for better control and security. Okay, so the easy way to understand this is you ask yourself a question: is my data sensitive? If it's sensitive, if yes, then you go for security, which is a private cloud. The second question: how much money do I have? Which is about cost or budget. Can I afford my own security facility? If yes, you go for a private cloud. If you can't manage, the other alternative is a public cloud, which is very cheaper and affordable. Okay, so that's about the factors that influence the choice of cloud computing. So to give it a full meaning, so that you understand it better, so you say two factors influencing the choice of cloud deployment model are security requirements and cost, because organizations consider data protection needs and available budget when choosing a cloud setup. Okay, so that's about question 4, which I was asking us about factors that influence cloud choices. Okay, so we move to question 5. Okay, question 5. So question 5 reads as follows: explain the term virtualization and describe its role in cloud computing. So the first thing we are told to explain what virtualization is and what role it plays in cloud computing. So what then is virtualization? So before I explain what virtualization is. I want us to look at each individually. So what is when we say virtual, what do we mean by virtual? So it's something not physical, but it is created using software. So it's not physical, but it's up there, created using a software. E.g., for example, something behaves like it is real, but it is created digitally. Something which is just created digitally. It is not real, but it's digitally. Okay, so virtualization, virtualization, virtualization means uh, creating creating virtual versions, virtual versions. So virtual versions of computing resources such as servers, storage, or operating system using software. So it's more like a computer which over the internet, which is built using software. Okay, imagine you have one powerful computer or server. So this powerful computer gives you an opportunity of using it, like it performs like you have three individual computers, just one computer behaving like you have two individual or three individual computers. Think of it like in a company, you work in departments. There's where we have IT program, those who are doing building softwares. Okay, there is a department of cyber security who are looking who are maintaining softwares, protecting softwares from threats, of course. Okay, so you have these departments, and imagine you only have one person in company who can handle all these three departments, only one. And there's this in this company there's only this one person who can handle all these departments. And then in a certain company they depend they have they have all these departments individually, each looking at a certain department. So which one would you prefer? Because when you look at it, you will spend more money in paying all these departments, those who are looking at cyber, those who are looking at programming themselves, those who are looking at a different section. So you find that this other company will benefit more because they only have one person who can handle all the departments at once. So this is beneficial because it will it will save you from overspending. Okay, so that's the best scenario I would give about virtualization. So these are just computer this is just a big powerful computer which gives you an opportunity of having multiple computers which are virtually up there performing or handling specific tasks or a multiple of tasks. Okay, so this is just a big machine handling a lot of tasks. So virtualization is the process of creating virtual versions of computing resources such as servers, storage, and operating systems so that one physical system can act like multiple systems. Okay, so that's about virtualization. That's what virtualization means. And then what is its role in cloud computing? What is the role of virtualization in cloud computing? So for us to answer this question, like the role it plays in cloud computing, we have to understand what virtualization does in cloud computing. Okay, so role number one, it allows one server to become main virtual machines instead of buying many physical computers. different computers. You just buy one big computer which can act like there are a lot of computers. Okay, so it's just one big computer. Let's put a scenario of soccer. So you find that you have a imagine you have an academy for sports. Okay, and you want maybe your players to train. Instead of you uh buying different stadiums, you buy this stadium for maybe certain players to train from this stadium. You buy another stadium, it will cost you a lot of money. Instead, you just buy one stadium, and then that stadium you divide it into sections. uh those sections will be divided like this. So you find that a certain pair of players will be training from the other side. A certain pair of players will train from the other side. A goalkeeper, if he wants to train, he has his own portion of training, unlike buying different stadiums for this section to train. Okay, so that's what virtualization, or the role of virtualization it plays. It acts as many computers handling multiple tasks at once. So you just buy one big computer, or one big server which handles all these tasks at once, which is an advantage or a plus to a company. Okay, so what other role does virtualization play in cloud computing? It reduces cost. Okay, it reduces cost. Okay, so what do we mean it reduces cost? Instead of you buying a lot of computers, because yeah, that of course we agree, it costs a lot of money. You just buy one single computer which acts as these many computers. So those are the roles that virtualization play in cloud computing. Okay, that being said, we now move to question 6. So what does question 6 state, or what is it saying? So question 6 is asking us to what is identity and access management, and why is it critical in cloud industry? Okay, so I IAM is just identity identity access access management. access Identity access management. Okay, so we'll look at each individual. What is an identity? So an identity, we understand what an identity is basically who someone is. Okay, even at our school, for them to identify you, you have an ID which helps them to identify if you are a student of this school, of a particular school. Okay, examples of identity, we have username, password, student ID, or employer account. Okay, so those are the things that would identify someone. So what is an identity then in cloud computing? So an identity helps the system to know who is trying to access the system. Okay, so it's basically helping the system to recognize who is trying to access that particular system. Imagine if we didn't have identities when accessing certain softwares or certain systems. you would find that people would use those would start abusing those systems because it can't recognize who is accessing it, and it's very hard to keep track of people throwing harms to a particular system. Okay, so that's about what identity means in cloud computing, and of course how we understand identity. And then what is access? What then is access? So access means permission to enter or use something. Example, who can open a room, who can use a system, who can see files. Okay, so we need access, we need permission to some stuffs. Imagine our school portal. Of course, we have identities, how it's able to recognize us when we enter our details. When we enter the username and the password, it's able to recognize, oh, this is the person. So you are granted access to the portal. You can access the results, yeah, see the timetable when it's released. But there are some certain things that you are restricted to. Okay, so what are the some of the things that you are restricted to? For example, on your student portal, you can't change your results. Once the results are published, you are given a D. You can't change that, it will be a D. So only authorized users are able to change that, of course, through the exam department. They can, those are the people who are authorized to access your results and change whatever results you got. Okay, so we now understand what an identity is, what access is. So what is management? So when we look at management, it's basically controlling or organizing. Okay, so you having control over a system. Okay, that's basically what management means. So putting it together, what is an IAM or identity access management? So an identity access management is a system that controls who can access cloud resources and what they are allowed to do. Okay, so this makes sense based on what we've been looking at. So it provides access to cloud resources. So of course, based on what I want to use certain cloud resources, uh, based on the information that I will provide to some certain services, I can be denied access or granted access because of the information that I'm going to provide and the use that I want to use it to use those cloud resources for. Okay, so imagine you want to access some resources on over the internet. For example, maybe you want to access some servers, you want to be allocated some space for your company. So based on the information that you are going to give them and what you are going to use those resources will determine whether the system will grant you that permission to use them or not. Why? Because we're also looking at security purposes. If we are to grant everyone access to those resources, meaning we are putting our resources at risk, the information will be at risk. Okay, so that's the reason why we have an IAM in cloud computing. And this answers two questions. So think of it like a system which asks you two questions, like who are you, which means it's identifying, it's about identity. And what are you, the second question is what are you allowed to access, which means it's about access. what do you want to do with that system? It's about the access. Okay. Okay, let's assume this. You have a home management system which which identifies who comes at your place and what they want to do at your place. Okay, of course you would feed it information to say if it's a relative, they can able to access the house, move around the house. Yeah, of course it's not everywhere they can access, but they will have some areas where they are allowed to go. So this system will check who is this person. If this person is a relative, okay, they will be granted access to enter the yard. In a circumstance that maybe comes a stranger, he is not recognized by that system, of course you would put conditions in that system to say if this person is a stranger and then the reason why they want to be in, they want to access this yard is it's not valid. Of course you would feed it information to say deny this person access from entering the yard. Why? You are trying to protect what's inside the yard. Okay, protecting resources which are inside the yard. Okay, so that's about an IAM or an identity access management. You would think of it in that way. Okay, so we an identity access management is basically, just to sum it up, is is a system used to control who can access cloud resources and what actions they are allowed to perform. Okay, so now this brings us to step 2. Why is identity access management critical or important in cloud security? Of course, from what I explained, you're able to come up with the importance of it in cloud computing. So reason number 1 is basically to prevent unauthorized access. That's just a basic reason we would give it, meaning it stops people from entering systems anyhow. Okay, what's another reason we would give? It prevents sensitive information, because if anyone can access a system, meaning the information is sensitive information is at risk. Okay, so that's about identity access management and its importance in cloud computing or cloud security.